Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call today's event to order. My name is Darcy Taylor, Senior Vice President of Major Projects and Highway Maintenance for CarMax. Welcome and thank you all for joining us here at CarMax. A special welcome to our guests, partners, and team members, all who are here to support today's announcement. I'll talk a little bit about CarMax. CarMax is proud to be celebrating 50 plus years in Alberta, serving the Transportation and Economic Corridors Ministry. For over 5 decades, we've supported the province's critical infrastructure through construction, maintenance, and operations. We're honored to contribute to Alberta's transportation network and proud to host today's event. Today, we have the privilege of welcoming the Honourable Devin Dreeshen, Alberta's Minister of Transportation and Economic Corridors.
Well, thank you very much. It's very exciting to be here at the NHL Trade Deadline Day. I have some very exciting non-hockey related news to share with everybody, but obviously it's great to be here at CarMax. They do such an amazing job on our highway maintenance when it comes to the north and the west ring road here in Calgary, as well as the Deerfoot. We get lots of calls into my office about how great the ring road is being maintained and maybe a little better than some of the city streets at certain times. And it's credit to CarMax and their folks going out there every day, making sure that Calgarians and all Albertans going around Calgary do it in a very safe manner. So thank you guys very much for the work that you do here every day, especially during winter. But on February 26th, Alberta's government released Budget 26. And this budget focuses on what matters. And it makes disciplined choices while taking decisive action. And for transportation and economic corridors, that means building for growth and maintaining what matters, and investing in the infrastructure that drives jobs, opportunity, and our economy. And as Alberta's population continues to grow, so does the need for safe, reliable, and effective infrastructure to support communities across the province, attract investment, and boost economic development. And that's exactly what we're doing. I'm pleased to announce that we are investing $8.3 billion in transportation and economic corridors 3-year capital plan. And I'll just do a quick breakdown of that. There'll be $2.8 billion in capital investment for planning, design, and construction of roads and bridges. $2 billion in capital maintenance and renewal for highway and bridge rehabilitation projects, an increase of $234 million compared to last budget. There'll be $180 million for water management and flood mitigation, $3.3 billion for capital grants to municipalities all across the province. So those are some very big numbers, but let me put those into perspective. Of this funding, more than $5 billion is invested in projects in rural areas, while $1.7 billion is invested right here in the Calgary region. This includes major investments in Alberta's busiest road, the Deerfoot Trail. Alberta's government is investing another $266 million to cut wasting congestion time on Deerfoot. With these new improvements, Calgary drivers will save up to 20 minutes of travel time on the Deerfoot once that construction is completed. And other Calgary projects includes the bridge replacement work on Highway 8 on the West Calgary Ring Road, and the completion of Stony Trail and the Airport Trail interchange. Now, Budget 26 also includes $1.35 billion in capital grants to the City of Calgary. That includes $202 million for the Calgary Rivers District and Event Centre at the new Saddle Dome, which will provide transportation infrastructure which will help revitalize downtown Calgary. And Budget 26 also maintains our commitment to supporting Calgary's LRT line projects with $637 million in provincial funding over the next 3 years. Now that's $586 million for the Green Line and $51.5 million for the Blue Line extension towards the airport. Now our funding doesn't end at the city limits. We do have more than 400 construction projects across rural Alberta that will help improve traffic flow and support the development of major trade corridors throughout the province. Just some examples: twinning 40 kilometers of Highway 11 between Sylvan Lake and Rocky Mountain House, twinning 36 kilometers of Highway 3 between Seven Persons and Medicine Hat, Highway 40 grade widening between Hinton and Graden Cache, Highway 686 grade base and paving extension, and Highway 881 safety and road improvements. So we're also making targeted investments that support the growth and prosperity of rural communities by also funding 3 new bridges of $66 million over 2 years to replace a Smith Bridge in the municipal district of Lesser Slave River to support the region's agricultural and industrial sectors in oil and gas. And also a $5.4 million to replace the McKinley Bridge that was heavily damaged in the 2023 Grizzly Complex wildfire, and also $50 million over 3 years for construction and replacement on Highway 33 over the Athabasca River at south of Fort Assiniboine to support the forestry and agricultural sectors up there. Now, by doing this kind of work, we can get more out of our roads and extend the lifespan of our highways by about 20 years. Now, I could spend hours up here talking about all the different projects across the province and plans that I have, but I'll stop there and just say that all our investments in Budget 26 reflect Alberta's fiscal reality while supporting our rapidly growing population and maintaining a safe and efficient transportation network across the province, and to support our economy and our high quality of life. And with that, thank you all for being here today, and I'd like to welcome Rob from the Consulting Engineers of Alberta to share remarks at the podium. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. My name's Robert Radovanovich with the Consulting Engineers of Alberta, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to echo the Minister's remarks about how Budget 2026 emphasizes the importance of sustained, consistent, long-term investment in infrastructure to support Alberta's growing communities and reinforce our economic resiliency. As key partners in the planning, design, and delivery of infrastructure projects across the province, we believe that it's critical to fully recognize the value of these proposed investments through the benefit of Albertans. And what we look forward to is continuing to work with Alberta Transportation and Economic Corridors on looking at innovative ways to advance project delivery while at the same time maintaining reliable, safe infrastructure that Albertans rely upon every day. And with that, I'd like to introduce Jan Kamodi from AECON. Thank you.
Minister Dreeshen, distinguished guests, colleagues and partners, good morning, and thank you for having me here today. I'm proud to represent AECON as the project director on the Deerfoot Trail Improvements Project here in Calgary. Deerfoot Trail is one of Alberta's most critical transportation corridors, underpinning daily mobility, trade, and economic activity across Calgary. The improvements underway over the last few construction seasons are a direct result of earlier capital investments by Alberta's government. And we are already seeing what those investments deliver: reduced congestion, safer interchanges, and more reliable travel for Calgarians. Budget 2026's $1.7 billion investment in Calgary region transportation infrastructure builds directly on those prior Deerfoot investments, supporting jobs, improving commuter reliability, and strengthening Calgary's role as the economic engine for the province. This continued focus on maintaining what matters while building for growth recognizes that infrastructure like Deerfoot Trail isn't just concrete and asphalt. It's economic productivity, business competitiveness, and long-term growth for Calgary. On behalf of AECON, I want to thank the Government of Alberta and the Ministry of Transportation and Economic Corridors to deliver these complex projects while keeping traffic moving and communities connected. We're proud to be playing a role in extending the value of past investments and helping ensure Alberta's infrastructure and transportation network is ready not just for today, but for decades to come. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to go to Q&A. If media want to line up at the mic right next to me, please state your name and outlet. One question, one follow-up. Thank you.
For the minister and whoever wants to comment, because I know you guys are all stakeholders in this, you talk about Deerfoot Trail upgrades. Tell us a little bit about what's new when it comes to that and how it's going to help specifically when it comes to congestion and drive time.
Sure. I'll let AECON obviously add more add more color to it. But the major improvements that we've done over the last year, obviously by the airport trail that just got completed, that interchange going in near the airport. We completed that last year, as well as there's 2 more segments left to go, kind of the middle part of Deerfoot, and then obviously the Ivor Strong Bridge at the south. That'll take about 2 years to complete, so hopefully by 2027, the final Deerfoot construction will be done, and not putting words in Acon's mouth, but that's our hope, to be able to complete that. And then Anderson-Bow Bottom Trail, that to be done hopefully by the end of this year as well. So those important intersections, once they are done, will cut down about 20 minutes in a daily commute of people that have to go and use the Deerfoot going into downtown from the suburbs. So that's just from a high level, but happy to Acon to be able to correct me if I'm wrong or add any more color on that.
That sums it up pretty good, guys. But just to give everybody an insight on the season ahead of us here, which is this year, we're going to have 5 new structures, or 5 remaining structures, I should say, bridge structures open this year. So you're going to see a lot of traffic alignment changes this year. You're going to see commutes that are going to be improving drastically compared to past seasons. And obviously the big improvements for Deerfoot Mainline widening next year, you're going to see a lot of, that's basically 2027 works. And so you're only going to see things getting better, guys.
And follow up for the minister when we're talking about transportation. If you take a look at the budget, if you take out mentions of LRT, the only other mention of any rail project at all is the YYC rail, where its budget was cut from $6 million to $1 million. That's over the next 3 years here. There's no mention of the rail master plan at all in this budget. So when we talk about improving highways and congestion, we could be getting cars off the road with rail, but there's no mention of that. So where are we at with rail here in our province when it comes to the province's responsibility to moving forward with those projects?
Sure. Well, when it comes to rail and LRT and the province partnering with both Edmonton and Calgary, the Capital Line South in Edmonton is a project that's ongoing that we have been funders for the city of Edmonton. And then here in Calgary, obviously, finally, the start of the Green Line being constructed is well underway, and there'll be more construction bids going out this spring for the second round of construction, which just started last year. So that will, obviously, it's in the budget in a big way. The Blue Line, finishing it, not just the construction portion, but also the engineering side to actually tie into the airport. That's something we're still having talks with the city of Calgary of finally tying the Blue Line into the airport. And when it comes to passenger rail, that is, our passenger rail master plan is something that we're hoping to announce within the next month, which will really open up the province and Edmonton and Calgary, and the possibility of having a high-speed rail between those 2 cities, as well as a stop in Red Deer and connections to both airports internationally. So that work is coming soon, and with the announcement of that, there will be an expression of interest for any rail company that wants to be able to feed in to what that provincial master plan looks like, and how their technology, their rail line, is something that can feed into having amazing transit opportunities for Albertans as well as Calgarians and Edmontonians.
Thanks, Michael. Anyone else? We're going to go into the line. Operator, can we put our first caller through?
We have a question from George Lee from Fort Macleod Gazette. Your line is open.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for this. I'm just wondering about funding of infrastructure in Lesser Slave Lake, given Scott Sinclair's concerns last year and his removal from caucus over them. I understand there may have been a new approach to how transportation and economic corridor funding is calculated in the north to do with resource and economic mapping. So I wonder if you could just go through what's happening in the Lesser Slave Lake area and how those decisions are made.
Sure, great. Thanks, George. Resource revenue mapping is something that we've looked at within transportation economic corridors of how can we help fund the 64,000 lane kilometers that we have out in rural Alberta, as well as the 5,000 bridges in rural Alberta, and look at the energy resource sector. Because obviously the billions in royalties that we get every year come from rural Alberta, and we need to make sure that the road and bridge networks out in rural Alberta to these sites and to the communities that obviously people that live in those communities, work in those sites, that we can match those royalty dollars in with the infrastructure dollars in rural Alberta. So we always, in every budget cycle, we go through a list of rural Alberta projects that are engineered, ready to go, ready to get designed. And in the budget, we actually have Smith Bridge. I think it's $60+ million for Smith Bridge up in northern Alberta near Slave Lake, which is critical to an oil play in that region to be able to not have this bridge have weight restrictions or even closed off, which would add about a 200-kilometer extra round trip for that oil company and that oil play. So we obviously try to match our critical infrastructure with where the true dollars come in, which is obviously our royalties. So that is something that's very important. And just specifically on Slave Lake, actually met with the mayor of Slave Lake on budget day, talked with her about Highway 88 and how breaking it down into 3 different segments so that we could widen Highway 88 rather than just pave it, which obviously narrows it. And as people up in Slave Lake know, that is a narrow road already. So to just repave it, narrow it even more, doesn't address any of the safety issues. So with the mayor, with council, as well as MLA Sinclair, we made the decision to make sure that we would widen it. But obviously that takes more time to get the extra land, the utility moves, and make sure that project can go ahead. But across the province, we want to make sure that we're investing in core infrastructure.
Did you have a follow-up?
Yes, I do. This is a bit of a pivot, and I apologize for that. But I'm wondering about the quite significant reduction in the STIP program and how you reconcile that, Minister, with concentrating on infrastructure that matters when the RMA has really made quite a discussion point about its infrastructure deficit. How do you reconcile that?
So our municipal grants that we have in transportation economic corridors, STIP being one of them when it comes to roads and bridges in municipalities, as well as our 2 water grant programs that go out and help municipalities maintain and rebuild their water infrastructure. There's obviously a huge demand to both of those programs and those grants coming from transportation economic corridors. But the STIP rollout is going to come this spring. That always comes after budget. So we'll wait and see which projects get prioritized in STIP and in the water grants. But obviously there is a huge need for both of those programs, and we try as best as we can to partner and work with municipalities. But if you look across the country, I don't think any other province supports municipal infrastructure as much as Alberta does. So obviously we're proud of the fact that the province can help municipalities when it comes to their infrastructure, but there is obviously a huge need. But in other provinces, it's mostly, if not all, funded by municipalities. So it is something that we want to be able to help out municipalities as a province. But it obviously was a very tough budget with a $9 billion deficit, with oil pegged at $60 a barrel. It is tough to be able to have additional dollars going out to other levels of government.
Thanks. Operator, please put in our next caller.
Our next question comes from the line of Bill Coffin from Post Media. Your line is open.
Yes, hi, Minister Dreeshen. The Calgary Police Service and the Calgary Police Commission are asking the province to permit photo radar on Stoney and Deerfoot Trail. Is that something that your government is considering?
No, our government's not considering putting photo radar on Stoney Trail or the Deerfoot, but we are obviously working with municipalities that use photo radar. We have a provincial policy that dictates that photo radar is best used in construction zones, playground zones, and school zones, and that's something that is a province-wide mandate. However, there are exceptions that municipalities can request that photo radar go in locations outside of those 3 areas, and we've seen the City of Calgary do that in certain areas. And obviously, there'll be audit processes coming from the province to see if those exceptions to the rule are actually deterring or making improvements in traffic safety. But obviously, we want to work with municipalities to make sure that we can have safe intersections, and most of the time it's an engineering issue, and that's why we have $13 million in this budget going out to municipalities that can help them in the design work and the engineering work of certain unsafe, I'm looking at the engineer behind me, looking at unsafe intersections that are just designed in an unsafe way, and how you can design and obviously construct them in a safer way. That's the best way to make road improvements and to increase safety. So that's something that we do partner with municipalities on.
Follow up?
Yes, certainly. The Calgary Police have said that they're quite alarmed by what they say is a deterioration of safety on those roads, and the increase of extreme speeding, as they call it. And they say that it's no coincidence that this is happening after the photo radar has been plugged to the freeways. What do you say to that?
Well, I'd say it's interesting to look at the enforcement of the Edmonton Police Force and the Calgary Police Force when it comes to the ring roads. The last numbers I saw, Edmonton had about 300 or so tickets on the ring road. They increased enforcement and actually had about 900 tickets in a month time period. And just that extra physical enforcement of police on the ring roads did an incredible job of curbing the type of driving behavior that we saw in Edmonton. So not telling the police what to do, but when you look at that physical enforcement, that is something that, as everybody drove here today, I think that is something that does help drivers be able to make sure that they are driving safe as much as they can. And also just from a provincial standpoint, what we're really cracking down on is trucker safety and some of the issues that we're obviously seeing with unsafe truck drivers. We've shut down 13 unsafe truck driving trucking companies here in Alberta. We've shut down 5 fraudulent truck training schools here in the province to really help to improve road safety. And I think everybody probably has a story or knows someone of seeing semis swerving all over, unsafe passing, or in our world in transportation, striking bridges. And the millions of dollars it goes just to repair bridge strikes. So it is something that obviously there are unsafe drivers out there, and we want to make sure that we can hold them accountable. And we do a lot when it comes to truck driving, but when it comes to daily commutes and enforcement, that physical enforcement is the best way to improve driving behavior.
Operator, do you want to put in our next caller?
Our next question comes from the line of Tyson Fedor from CTV News Calgary. Your line is open.
Thanks for taking my question. Minister, a little bit off topic here, but as everyone watches the price of oil here surpass $90 in the just last couple of minutes, maybe take me through. I know you guys had based this budget on $60 a barrel. You just mentioned it in one of your previous answers, but with the price of oil expected to potentially go to $100 US here, according to Goldman Sachs, what's your government doing looking at the price of oil, where we're at in this situation, and potentially some of the impact it could have here in Alberta when it comes to the budget and potentially projects moving forward?
Well, if the finance minister was here, he'd say he doesn't get too excited or too depressed when it comes to the daily price of oil. Obviously, from a budgeting standpoint, it does have to extend throughout the entire year to make a big difference. But it's something that we have quarterly updates. We'll see what happens. Our budget was just released last week, and as you said, it was at $60.50 for the year. And that was a pretty conservative budget estimate of, at the time, what the range of oil was going to be. But there are geopolitical events that can happen around the world, and oil prices can wildly fluctuate. So that volatility is obviously tough to budget. But we do want to make sure that with realistic oil projections that we can operate our provincial budget in a way that can invest in important things. And I think it was an interesting fact from the budget. When you looked at just everybody's personal income here in the province, as well as corporate taxes, it was about $23 billion. But $34 billion went out just to operate our healthcare system. So obviously oil plays a big part in balancing our budget and going to pay for the things that we use every day, because just our personal income tax and our corporate taxes that we pay isn't even enough just to cover keeping the lights on in the hospital and paying doctors and nurses. So oil is obviously a very big portion of Alberta's budget, but again, we'll see what happens as it plays out throughout the year.
Follow up.
Yeah, and just to follow up, maybe just getting your reaction in regards to we're hearing over the last week here from South Bow about gauging shipper interest in New Alberta to U.S. pipeline project. With, of course, it only just being over the last week, prices of oil going up as we see. Do you expect to see that investor confidence come back to Alberta here in this situation at this point? I know the Premier announced today with the Prime Minister as well an agreement in principle to accelerate the construction of major projects here in Alberta as well. So maybe just your take on that with South Bow and that new agreement.
Well, obviously we have a stranded asset if we can't get it to global markets with our oil and gas. So we want to make sure that we can build pipelines, get them to as many markets as possible. So obviously in investor confidence, we've seen that shaken over the years. We've had 10 years of a Liberal government that seemed to go out of their way to stop projects here in Alberta, whether it was canceling projects from Alberta or having an oil tanker ban in the northern part of BC, going to the Pacific, going out to Asian markets, or canceling Energy East, going east. So it is interesting to see the new take of the Liberal government under Prime Minister Mark Carney saying that we want to see projects go ahead. But we've also seen CNRL just a couple days ago or yesterday say that they were going to hit pause on their $8.6 billion expansion of the oil sands just due to some uncertainty from the federal government on carbon pricing. So we as a province, when it comes to our energy and our resources, it's through the Constitution, it's our jurisdiction to make sure that we can develop them in a way that obviously benefits our people, and we want to make sure we can get markets all around the world. So we'll do that any way possible, but We'll be confident. We'll be confident when industry is confident in having a level playing field when it comes to the government process of getting projects approved.
Next question, please. Caller. Operator, can you put through our next caller?
Our next question comes from the line of Lisa Johnson from the Canadian Press. Your line is open.
Hi, good morning. This is for Minister Dreeshen. I'm wondering if you can give us an update. There were quite a few trial balloons, I guess, floated last year about potential bike lane legislation from the provincial government. Can you give us an update on whether or not you expect bike lane legislation to come through in the spring sitting, or where are you at with that given the developments happening in Ontario with similar legislation?
Sure. We're still working on potential bike lane legislation as a province. We've seen, as you mentioned, Ontario put in legislation to be able to make sure that bike lanes were used in an appropriate manner. And something that we're currently looking at is making sure that bike lanes, we do fund bike lanes as a province on certain municipal projects, but they are on dedicated bike lanes that don't take away from a driving lane. And I think that's the biggest, sometimes the cross-threaded nature that happens with Edmonton and Calgary and the provincial government are existing bike lanes that were designed by an engineer to accommodate for current population as well as future population growth in a community that is obviously then tied into a provincial road network, to then have a municipal government take away that driving lane and to replace it with a bike lane. And that's just not logical through a civil engineering lens, and it is something that if we have to introduce legislation to make sure that that is reinforced, that's something that we're willing to do. But spring session just started next week, so I'd hate to reveal what's going to be announced in this spring session, but it is something that we're currently looking at other provinces as well as considering legislation here to make sure that we can promote driving on roads.
Lisa, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, thanks for that, Minister. I would love to know if you signed a separatist petition, but I'm sorry to double barrel it. This is also important. Can you tell us when we can expect the passenger rail master plan to be made public? I understand from the budget documents that your ministry has completed the master plan. It's done. When do you expect that Albertans will see that master plan?
So the passenger rail master plan, you're right in your sources. It is completed. We're now hoping within the next month to be able to announce it. And as I mentioned before, we want all rail companies to be able to look at the plan to see if their technology and their plans can fit within the confines of what we're looking for and what we think would be the best for transportation, a new transportation network to benefit Albertans. And that will look like a high-speed rail proponent between Edmonton and Calgary, and then the tying in of LRT networks in both Edmonton and Calgary, and with connections to the international airports as well as a stop in Red Deer. So that backbone of the passenger rail master plan, where 80% of the population lives through the Highway 2 corridor, is something that we're going to be officially rolling out within the next month, and then we'll have expression of interest letters coming in from other rail companies, or from rail companies, to be able to say that they want to be a piece of it, and I think that's going to be so that private sector investment into passenger rail is going to be very important, and but that's an announcement for another time.
Operator, please put through our next caller.
We have a question from Zoe Mason from Medicine Hat News. Your line is open.
Hi, thank you. My question's for the minister. It's just about the twinning of Highway 3 between Medicine Hat and Seven Persons. Obviously, a long time coming for this region. I'm curious what updates you can provide on that project. Where are we at in that process, and what are the steps remaining before we get shovels in the ground?
Sure. Well, the Taber to Burdett section of Highway 3 is near completion. That 46-kilometer stretch was just started last year, and it's great to see that area being the first of 7 left to go when it will complete from Medicine Hat all the way out to the BC border, the twinning of Highway 3. And Budget 26 does have construction dollars for that 7-person segment of Highway 3. So a tender will be going out shortly for obviously construction companies to be able to bid on that project. And just a benefit of building down in southern Alberta, just with it being flat and having pretty easy construction outside, is something that we do expect it to be on time and on budget when we release that tender and pick the contractor to build it. But it is a priority, and it is in Budget 26 for that 7-person segment of Highway 3.
Follow-up?
Okay, thanks. No, I have no follow-up.
Thank you. Operator, please put through our next caller.
We have Rick Donkers from CBC Radio Calgary. Your line is open.
Thank you very much for the call. I'd like to ask Minister Dreeshen to follow up on Tyson Fedora's question regarding the price of oil. We're having, you said earlier that this was a tough budget. We're having some analysts suggesting the price with the Strait of Hormuz shutdown could raise as much as $150 a barrel on WTI. Would a surge in oil prices have any impact on the 2026 highway construction program?
It's like you were in Treasury Board with me. I can't speculate on what adjustments will be made to the budget, but I would say that it is nice that this budget does have significant investments into the Heritage Trust Fund, and obviously the concept of the Heritage Trust Fund is investments going into it, savings that will then, and any interest made will then go back into the Heritage Trust Fund, and that's that longer-term saving plan for Albertans. So eventually, when you look at other jurisdictions like Norway or others that have significant amounts of oil revenue from royalties that they put into a savings account, which they can then use the interest from there as operating to help with their daily expenses, operating expenses in a budget. That's a big ultimate goal and a major priority for the Premier of that fund to hit $250 billion by 2050. So I'd hate to. There's a Treasury Board decision, obviously, of if there is a surplus, of whether some goes into the Heritage Trust Fund or other goes into the capital plan. So, but obviously, it would be a good problem to have if we were facing a massive surplus with $150 barrel oil. But as I said before, that does take a whole year of being 150 and not just a blip for a day or a week.
Follow-up?
I understand that, but my follow-up would be: is there any mechanism that you could adjust if there is a surplus of funds available that are not earmarked for the Heritage Fund?
Yeah, whether it's the Heritage Fund, even decisions of what would go in there if there was a surplus is a decision by Treasury Board. And if it were to go in operating or capital plan or building more roads, is something that would have to be a decision made by Treasury Board. And we'd have to wait and see what happens at that time. But it would be obviously considered by Treasury Board if we were in a surplus position versus a deficit.
Operator, please put through our next caller.
We don't have questions as of the moment.
Excellent. We're going to take one more question from the mic here.
Hi, good morning from Post Media. Obviously, we've seen tremendous, unprecedented growth all through the province, and especially in Calgary. And we've heard about the construction plans. What are we doing to plan ahead? It seems like we're always behind. I'm born and raised in Calgary, and we're always behind everything, construction particularly. So where are we looking ahead to as Calgary approaches 2 million and then expands?
Well, I think one of the biggest visionary projects that we're working on right now is the passenger rail master plan. And I always look back to the ring roads, that it was the social credit government back in the day that had the plan for a ring road around Calgary. And then it wasn't until the Lougheed days in the 70s where they actually bought the land and started bringing that more into advancement. And then obviously it was this UCP government that finally finished the West Calgary Ring Road and the final portion of that. So obviously I think big major projects shouldn't take 70 years to build, but I think our passenger rail master plan is something that is quite visionary. It's not something for next year, it's not something for right now or catching up, but it is something that looks at the reforming how Calgarians and Edmontonians and Albertans move across the province. And it will take obviously a long time to build out, to plan and to build. But I think that's a pretty visionary transportation reform that we're looking at here in Alberta. And I'd give all the credit to Premier Smith. It's something that she's been very passionate about, and this is something that she's held very close to her chest. And I think that is probably one of the biggest visionary growth plans that we have for the province in transportation.
Did you have a follow-up?
No. Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone. That concludes our announcement.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. And thank you, CarMax. Appreciate it.